What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, Keto for Women, Phase 3, Carb Cycling. Now, before we go any further, let me preface up front, not everybody needs to carb cycle for optimal health, but some do. So we know for a fact that fats are essential, proteins are essential, carbs are non-essential, meaning the glucose that's created from carbohydrates, or rather is broken down and they turn into glucose into your bloodstream, is something that we can make on our own. So it's not essential. That does not mean that it is not optimal to have some in your diet. And this phase is not for you to necessarily do carbs just because, but it's to figure out, do you need carbohydrates in your diet? Can you benefit from them? Okay, so phase 1, we're fat adapted. Phase 2, we've gotten our protein levels figured out, and now we're going on to phase 3. So phase 3 is your carb introduction phase, your carb cycling phase. You're going to figure out how many carbs do you need to be optimal, if you need any at all, the timing of those carbohydrates and things like that. This is the third and final phase, because once you figure this out, you have your ketogenic diet that's designed for you as a woman, as somebody with your individual situations, environments, and everything else that goes with it. So I want to make something super clear too before going forward. There's a difference between a funnel cake and an apple. This is not an excuse to go haywire on foods. I'm not saying that if you're out on about with celebrating something that you can't have the occasional treat. I'm not here to demonize that. I'm here to tell you that when we're talking about introducing carbohydrates as a strategic intervention into your diet, that we're speaking about whole food carbohydrates here. It's best to avoid grains and legumes. If you can find them organic, non-GMO, specifically gluten-free, especially in America. If you're outside of the US and you're watching this, you should be in a better place. But overall, just avoiding things that are sprayed with a lot of glyphosate and things like that. So sticking to your organic fruits and vegetables, root vegetables, things like that. Now, why would you need carbohydrates? That's a good question. I'll go over that briefly. If you want to know more about some of the things I'm going to talk about really quick, put it in the comment section and let me know and go, hey, I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about that. And we can do a Q&A video as we go through these things. The biggest one is the chronic stress that keto and long-term fasting can cause. So we know that they're stressors. In fact, that's what elicits a ketogenic response, is the stress of not having food. It's a survival tactic. Really, it's a different. Now, that doesn't mean people don't do it long term. People are in ketosis constantly. But part of being able to use fatty acids is a survival mechanism. We need to understand that. Now, for a lot of people, they can have the stressor of a ketogenic diet and some fasting, and it's not a big deal. It doesn't overbear them with corticosteroids, aka cortisol, and it doesn't infringe upon thyroid function and sexual hormone function. However, in cases for some women and men that are endurance athletes and have chronic stressors like that, we do see that on top of, for speaking about women specifically in this video, that on top of your cycle or going through menopause at the moment, on top of fasting, on top of keto, on top of job, on top of kids, on top of relationship, all of that accumulates and creates a very chronic stress environment. When your body's stressed, it tries to create more glucose because glucose is the first energy it wants for stress because it's quick and it gets them out of the situation quick. When you don't get out of the situation quick, your body still keeps making glucose. So instead of a quick fix, you're in a long-term chronic leaching of glucose, which puts you in a long-term leaching of insulin. This is called physiological insulin resistance. We've created insulin resistance internally from the stressors in your life. Now, some people, they can get rid of some stressors. They can, change jobs. They can work on stress management stuff. But your cycle, your hormones, things like that, you can get rid of. So we have to manage them therapeutically with nutrition. That's why carbs can come in handy. And when we wait too long, you might not have any symptoms right now at 16 weeks into this. If you follow phase 1 and phase 2. But you want to do this proactively. You want to add these in proactively because you don't want to get to the point where you lose your cycle or you start noticing that you feel the same way you felt before keto and you don't know why, or you don't want to wait for that point. You want to proactively figure this out now so you put yourself in the best position for later. So how do we go about doing this? The best way is to cycle with your cycle. Okay, so that means during your follicular phase, which is the first half of your cycle, your follicular, ovulation, and luteal. If you'll be more specific, we have a menstrual, follicular, ovulation, and luteal. But we'll join the follicular and the menstrual phase just for this description. You can do low carb, keto, fasting, all the stuff you want, especially in the first 2 weeks. And in the last 2 weeks, we want to do more of a low, moderate carb diet to blunt the cortisol and progesterone stuff that's going on. We're not trying to blunt progesterone, but just cortisol dampers on progesterone. So we want to help it rise so that you can have a cycle properly and you can have overall healthy hormone balance. Okay, that's one way to do it. Okay, so basically under 50 carbs your first 2 weeks, at 100 grams of carbs roughly your last 2 weeks. It's a super simple way to do it. Another simple way to do it is to have 75 to 100 grams of carbs on days you work out, and then under 50 or 20 total on the days you don't work out. That's also a very simple tactic. That way you're cycling carbs in and out throughout your whole cycle. That's totally fine too. Both of those are fine. Now, something that I need to say now, if you've been doing long-term keto and you've never done phase 3 and you have some of the symptoms that we went over, you may not be able to cycle carbs just yet. You may need to just slowly increase carbohydrates and hold them there until your body recovers hormonally. Best way to do this is to slowly increase carbohydrates. So if you've been eating 30 total or carnivore for years now, you need to start around 40 or 50 total carbs, and then you need to increase your carbs by 10 grams a day every week. So for example, week 1's 50, week 2, 60, week 3, 70, and work your way up to about 100, and then you need to hold that 100 until your symptoms subside, and then you can practice cycling your carbohydrates in and out of your diet. So I just wanted to preface that because some people, they can't just cycle because their body's just not ready for it hormonally, and they've already put it through too much shock and stress. So that's an overview of phase 3. I hope that it gave you a lot of information. I hope it clarified some things. If it gave you more questions, ask. I want to answer. I want to help you guys. So, and if you want anything, I'll put my links in the description below. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. I'm going to be putting out much more of these videos. I appreciate you. I hope you have a great day. Appreciate you.